Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin and publisher of TheBreaker.News, Bob Mackin. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Bob, with Canada involved in so many disputes with China, including their freeze on canola imports from Canada on some pretty bogus reasons, how important is it for Canada to make sure that we have an ambassador to China, because we haven't had one for a while now?
Of course, John McCallum, who some people call Mao Callum, was forced to quit after a couple of bozo eruptions, holding that news conference, a strange news conference in Markham, Ontario, that was for Chinese Canadian media only, where he gave, it was actually the Canadian version of Trump's Russia Are You Listening news conference. I mean, McCallum might as well have said China if you're listening. Because he basically gave China some ideas, which China probably already had, regarding, the whole Meng Wanzhou defense. And that was not the place of an ambassador who is not supposed to be a political person, even though McCallum did come from the world of politics. He was, a minister in the Trudeau cabinet that was sworn in 2015, and he was hustled out, more than a year later and sent to the plum position of being the ambassador to China, and came back to Canada during that period of time and held that news conference and really said some inappropriate things that we do not expect our ambassadors to say. Their ambassadors more often than not are to be seen and not heard, although sometimes they are heard, boosting Canada and helping out Canadians in the foreign jurisdictions where they do appear, but do not act as political messengers. And in fact, he was in this case. And as much as he said he was doing it on his own, you'd have to think that the foreign minister, either Chrystia Freeland's office or the prime minister's office, knew that it was going ahead and maybe even approved of him doing that meeting that day, that news conference. They tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and he said it was inappropriate, shouldn't have done it. And then a few days later, he was here in Vancouver. One of the reporters from the Toronto Star's Vancouver bureau approached him at a lunch, and he started having another bozo eruption, saying that things that we did not expect to say regarding the defense of Meng Wanzhou and how this whole situation was unfortunate. This situation is happening because of severe allegations that the United States have that become charges against Meng Wanzhou. And of course, they asked under the alliance as well as the treaties that it has with Canada to arrest Meng Wanzhou when she came through Vancouver International Airport in December. And of course, next week is her next court appearance here in Vancouver as we get closer and closer to actual extradition hearings to decide whether she should go down and face those charges in the United States. So here we are, months later, and we still don't have a full-time ambassador in China. And China is such a big and important country on the world scene, a controversial country on the world scene, a country that is holding Canadians on charges that they should not be held upon, and those charges have actually not been sworn in court, but China doesn't really have a rule of law anyways. It's ruled by law, and what the government says goes. It's a different system than ours, but Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, the businessman and the former diplomat, languishing in jail since December as China's retaliation for Canada's arrest on behalf of the United States for Meng Wanzhou. And here we have no ambassador to really oversee that file, as well as all the other files. China is an important trading partner, number 2 on many metrics behind the United States. And it's also a country from which many Canadian citizens have either come from or their families have come from. It would be an easy one to fill. It's one of the top diplomatic posts that Canada has. United States and United Kingdom are number 1 and number 2. You'd have to think that China would be, in Beijing would be not far beyond that. So I think it's an indictment of the Trudeau government that he hasn't found someone else to fill that spot, a trusted Canadian. There's got to be some trusted Canadians. We're a country of 37 million people. There's got to be someone here who could fill that spot. But then again, you never know. What if something else is going on behind the scenes and nobody wants to fill that spot? It would be a bit of an unenviable task at this point in time when Canadian and Chinese relations are probably at a low point in their history. It's been 4 decades since Canada made diplomatic relations with China. That was under the first Trudeau government, Pierre Trudeau's government, and here we are under Justin Trudeau, a prime minister who has been subject to foreign influence campaigns by the Chinese, a prime minister who has courted Chinese billionaires for fundraising to the Federal Liberal Party, and now a prime minister who is facing this task of trying to mend fences, or at least get China to understand that it has to respect Canada and its place in the world and stop being a bully. This is going to be interesting going forward in the weeks to come because, of course, June 4th will be the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, and that'll be marked in Canada, certainly with protests. There's already various dissidents who are living in Canada who are from China who want to remind the world of what happened back in 1989 when peaceful students were protesting for democracy in the biggest square in Beijing and the central center of China, and their protests were stamped out by the military and by deaths and guns, and it's a situation that China has never really come to terms with and never really wanted its citizens to know that it ever happened. It's one of those incidents that's censored in social media and on the internet in China. So here we have it. Canada is without a full-time ambassador. A deputy ambassador is handling the file, but this is the kind of situation with an election coming up soon. It may not go filled until after the election, until we know if it's going to be a continuation of Prime Minister Trudeau, or if it might be a Prime Minister Scheer, or the off chance it could be a Prime Minister Jagmeet Singh.
Bob, could this be a case of the government is so handcuffed by the SNC-Lavalin scandal that it really can't think about other things besides how to improve its polls?
Indeed, there's a bit of a deer in the headlights attitude right now. You'd think that if not for the SNC-Lavalin scandal, that the Trudeau Liberals would be doing a lot more campaign-style events right now before we get into the summer barbecue season when people's minds move to other things. You would have thought that they would have spent March and April, and here we are in May, getting ready for that election. And they're not. They've been doing more damage control and more bunkering, more hiding from the media, and perhaps even hiding from their own supporters who had expected them to be on the way to re-election now. But as we saw what happened with the budget, which the Conservatives literally drowned out when Bill Morneau was giving the budget speech, well, the Trudeau government since then has been drowned out by controversy. And Jody Wilson-Raybould and to a lesser extent Jane Philpott have been gaining more attention than the Prime Minister has. And people have been hanging on the words of Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, who were both in the Vancouver area in late April, and they both gave speeches at a First Nations Justice Council meeting in Richmond. These politicians seem to be given by a lot of people more credibility and more trust than Justin Trudeau is, and there's a lot of talk about what might happen in the months to come. Of course, we do have more than 5 months to go before the election date, October 21st, and there are certain questions about the integrity of the election. The abuse of social media we saw in 2016 down in the United States, to see if that could repeat itself here in Canada. But we're also seeing lack of momentum and lack of interest, perhaps, by a lot of Liberals who may just decide come October 21st to stay home and not even vote for any party. They might just sit on their votes and not go anywhere. That's something which could play in the favor of the Conservatives and the NDP. The Greens, of course, under Elizabeth May, Jody Wilson-Raybould showed up at Elizabeth May's wedding in Victoria, and that sparked a lot of talk about whether Jody Wilson-Raybould may find a spot on the Green ticket come October 21st and may stay in Vancouver Granville and perhaps even stay in Parliament as a member of Parliament under the Green banner. We'll see if that actually happens, because that, of course, goes into the Elizabeth May sphere, that she probably won't stay as leader of the Green Party after the election if she remains a caucus of one. She needs to grow that caucus and have more Green MPs in Ottawa. And there's been a bit of momentum, a bit of talk about the Greens being potential alternative for various Liberals who are now disaffected, or even a place where people can park their votes in protest. And that could bode well for Elizabeth May, and also make it for a bit of a different parliament if she can double, triple, or quadruple, or even get into double digits for a caucus. That's where we're going in this fall. There's a lot of talk about what could happen with a minority government. We saw what happened here in British Columbia in 2017. We saw what happened recently in Prince Edward Island. That maybe majorities are a thing of the past. Maybe people in certain political jurisdictions want to see some variety of ideas. And under the first past the post system, this might be the only way, is by moving your vote around strategically to a party which could be like a kingmaker or queenmaker, instead of voting for one of the two major parties.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, it seems the River Rock Casino, which was awash in money laundering, was more than just a place where shady characters brought in hockey bags full of cash. Other, perhaps shady or illegal things were happening as well. What went on?
Well, back in November 2017, back in the early days of this whole casino money laundering scandal, one story popped out that there were allegations of sexual assault at River Rock Casino in the High Rollers private gambling rooms. That some of these high rollers were gambling too much and drinking too much, and they were chasing after some of the attendants, the people that worked there, and making them feel harassed and in some cases assaulted. And so BC Lottery Corporation responded by hiring Paladin Security to do a report, and it was interesting that they chose a security company to do this investigation, but they did, and finally that investigation was wrapped up April 30th, and the report was released May 1st, and a redacted version. All the names were removed for privacy's sake, But that report's 37 pages, and as much as it's not a very long report at 37 pages, there seems to be a lot of depth there. That there were some serious allegations made in interviews with members of staff, as well as questionnaires that were completed by members of staff. And Paladin Security's investigators said that they communicated either in person through interviews or through the questionnaire with more than 38% of the 1,200 workers at River Rock, and they basically found out that there was a toxic work environment with assaults, threats, sexual assaults, even racism. The employees were too scared to report the incidents to their superiors for a couple of reasons. They feared being punished, being reassigned in the casino to a worse work environment, or maybe not getting the shifts that they wanted, as well as for fear that their complaint would be ignored, because there was some evidence that was introduced in this investigation that the superiors, the managers and supervisors, were telling workers who were complaining to basically suck it up, turn a blind eye, handle it yourself, or even they've lost a lot of money, as in the gamblers have lost a lot of money. Let them blow off steam. If they're going to be rude to you, or if they're going to threaten you, just sort of let them blow off steam. So there's some very serious allegations here. The Paladin Security people looked at BC Lottery Corporation files, as well as the files of the questionnaires, and found that there were dozens of allegations of various incidents, some of which were reported and documented, others that weren't, because those employees felt that they were putting themselves in jeopardy, or that the casino management wouldn't care and wouldn't do anything with their complaint. But they found that there were numerous complaints that were substantiated, that incidents did appear to have happened. Patron on staff, sexual harassment, physical assaults. There were even death threats, and there was one death threat that was mentioned in this report, and the only consequence was that the person who allegedly made the death threat was banned from the casino for 24 hours. Was basically told you can't come back here.
So Bob, the big question here is, why weren't the Richmond, BC RCMP called in if it sounds like criminal acts are taking place? This isn't something for a private security company to deal with. The Mounties should be in there.
That's true. That isn't quite answered here, but we have heard throughout this whole casino money laundering scandal from some police who worked in Richmond, who said that when they went on the uniformed routine patrols in the casino, that they were told by casino management, please go away, you're scaring away business. And that seems to be the whole theme of this whole scandal, is the money was so big that the government was bringing in so much money through the casinos into the $1.5 billion or so of profits that BC Lottery Corporation recorded every year, that they didn't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. They didn't want to scare away business. They wanted to keep coming through. And River Rock is part of Great Canadian Gaming. It's a public traded company, and they want to please their shareholders with bigger dividends every quarter. And their partner in this, of course, is the BC Lottery Corporation. They want to please their shareholder every quarter and every year with bigger dividends, and the shareholder is us essentially, but the person holding the shares is whoever's in government at the time. So it was just this momentum that all this money was coming in, and nobody wanted to see it go away in management and ownership, it seems. So the frontline workers had to bear the brunt of it. There's even suggestions here of racism, that staff that didn't speak Mandarin felt they had no chance to be working in the high rollers, high tipping VIP area. They were taking a lot of abuse, players swearing at dealers in Mandarin or Cantonese, and some of these dealers didn't know what the heck they're saying, and they asked. And, they were told by those who did speak Chinese language that it's better that you don't know what they're saying But they found out later that many of the Chinese language swears that they were enduring involved threats against the dealer or his or her family. So a lot of people here in this workplace that were in danger, some knew it and some didn't know it.
So were Mounties higher up the rank chain, the line of superiors, did they tell patrol officers don't go by the River Rock?
Well, we don't quite know, and this is again why there really does need to be a full judicial public inquiry to get to the bottom of this. But for the 16 years from 2001 to 2017, the party that signed one part of the policing contract here in BC with the RCMP was the Solicitor General of British Columbia, who was a BC Liberal member, and of course the BC Liberal policy was contrary to what the party said when it came to power in 2001, which was not going to expand gambling. It promised not to, but it did anyways. So the BC Liberals were the party that was in power for all those years as the whole industry expanded. I mean, it's an industry that the NDP was really involved in the 1990s in its infancy, but the Liberals took it to a whole new level, and they were using these profits from BCLC to help lessen the need for income tax increases is important to them from that standpoint, and also seeing the casinos expand, which meant, private companies being able to expand and hire more workers, and also build more casinos, which put construction workers and construction companies to work. It all worked fine and dandy for the Liberals until, of course, the NDP got into power and exposed some of this. And on the way, it did expose, even before then, years ago, Sean Holman, investigative reporter who's now a journalism professor in Alberta, exposed elements of this, and other reporters from other outlets have, that the BC Liberals saw the regulation as a cost or not effective for regulation, and they didn't want to see it get in the way of bringing in the money. And we did see in later years, in 2014 and 2015, the BC Lottery Corporation publishing its financial reports, and absolutely tickled pink that it was bringing in bigger money than the year before, the quarter before, because of high net worth individuals, VIP gamblers, especially from Asia, tourists who were plunking down a lot of money at River Rock especially, and that money was coming into BC Lottery Corporation coffers. So you had a situation where it was not a priority to be policed. Not until, of course, in 2009, that's when Rich Coleman shut down the illegal gambling enforcement squad. Not until 2016, under Mike DeYoung, who was minister at the time, did BC decide to put money into a new squad to get this regulated again. After so many years of warnings of stories of people bringing hockey bags loaded with cash into casinos, they finally did something in 2016. Maybe it was too little, too late, but it didn't appear that there was at all a coordinated effort to ensure that the casinos were policed, and in fact, it was designed that they were not policed properly. The Gaming Policy and Enforcement Branch is the regulator here of gambling in BC, and we found out through one of the Peter German reports that they didn't have Gambling Policy and Enforcement Branch officers on during the peak times of gambling. They weren't on Friday nights and Saturday nights. They were working business hours, basically 9 to 5, Mondays to Fridays. If you're going to regulate something where people are coming with at the peak times, you want to have the regulator there at the peak times, but they decided not to have the regulator there at the peak times. So that indicates to you that this was more design than incompetence, that casinos were allowed to act this way, and that this latest report by Paladin Security just shows that the people who were at the front of this whole equation, the ones that were interfacing with the gamblers, the ones that were taking the money from the gamblers, the ones that were securing the gamblers, the people that had to work amongst these people were really treated poorly, and didn't seem like management or supervisors really cared, and didn't seem like they were getting any outside help. This report even gives some recommendations that the people who were subject to this kind of behavior, they wanted people at the government to bring in some sort of mandatory education about treatment of staff. They wanted better training about sexual harassment, how to address it. They wanted undercover officers, plainclothes officers from gaming policy enforcement branch, from the police, to be there to discourage behavior, to watch behavior, to monitor behavior, to see incidents developing and prevent them from getting any further. And they also wanted to help educate the employees about labor laws and human rights codes, because these employees were taking a lot of abuse from customers, and their managers and supervisors weren't doing enough to actually help them through this. And they figure that perhaps they could have if they knew their rights more, and if they knew what human rights codes were.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, Canada's Privacy Commissioner, says Facebook is refusing to upgrade its security measures in Canada in violation of Canadian law. Other countries have fined Facebook millions, maybe billions of dollars. I'm not sure of the figures. But here in Canada, no measures taken against them whatsoever. Should they face charges?
Well, the Federal Privacy Commissioner, Daniel Terrio, is taking them to federal court to make an application to see if he can get some kind of discipline, some sort of penalty against Facebook, which when the report was released by the federal commissioner as well as the BC commissioner, Michael McAvoy, they said straight out that Facebook is resisting regulation and is not cooperating and is rejecting the recommendations and rejecting this report, even though Facebook in the United States is making noises about coming under regulation. But that may just be because the U.S. legislators carry a bigger hammer in Washington, D.C., and they're not scared of the Canadian legislators, especially since we've got a bit of a different system of government with our parliamentary system is on a permanent campaign system. And our government spend a lot of money on advertising, and so do the political parties. And one of the most powerful advertising platforms right now is Facebook. So Facebook appears to think that it has some cards that it can play, and hope that it doesn't get regulated here in Canada. It doesn't seem to be scared at all of the regulators, because again, the regulators here have laws that don't have teeth, that don't really have punishing fines within them. The only thing that you can do in Canada is say buyer beware, and hope that the public stands back and gets active in the place of the laws that are supposed to be there to protect us. This is especially disconcerting in an election year, when the privacy commissioners said that they're not confident that this election will happen without political interference, without misbehavior on social media, as we saw in 2016 with the U.S. election, as we saw the year before, with the Brexit referendum that built up, and of course, we've seen in other avenues with the Cambridge Analytica investigation blowing up last year. This is certainly something that Canadians have to watch out for, is that the laws that are supposed to be there to help us learn more about government, or transparency laws, don't have enough teeth, and the laws that are supposed to keep our information private, whether it's private on the government side or private on the industry side and political party side just aren't there. There isn't enough regulation in Canada for political parties. And in fact, in BC, the Privacy Commissioner here, Michael McAvoy, he does have power to investigate political parties. That doesn't happen in other provinces because they don't have the power. Political parties, just because they're the ones that run government, are able to decide what laws do not be made into law, and they seem to fashion the law enforcement system for their own good so that they can continue their power. There's just a shocking lack of checks and balances, and this is the manifestation of that, that our political parties are getting away with breaching our privacy and using all kinds of new technology and tools to try to learn more about us as voters, but they do not have strict laws regulating them, and there isn't enough transparency that is regulating them. We can find out who donates to them, but we don't know how they're spending the money. Federally, we can find out to a degree, but provincially we don't. There's just this gaping hole there that political parties are allowed to exist in as these organizations which seem to have more rights than others.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, publisher of thebreaker.news. If you have any questions for Bob or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.